What's up, everyone? Today we're going to be doing a recap on what this project cost. Now, you guys wanted to see me knock a project out quick because a lot of my projects are long-term, whether it's the drift truck or the GS. You guys have been wanting me to do more quick and substantial projects, so I figured why not break out the Toyota Supra? It's something that I had kicking around. It'd be very inexpensive to me. It'd be a great budget build. And as I sat down kind of crunching the numbers, because I wanted to let you guys know what it would cost for you guys to do this swap. Now, I'm no stranger to working with cars with, fairly expensive parts. Mopar is definitely right up there with like BMW when it comes to bring your wallet. And like this car I love the way this thing came out. The 318 that's in it, now there are plenty of really awesome 318 cars out there. An A-body version of it with a 318, freaking awesome. But there's a couple things that, quite honestly, and I'll be completely frank with you, it looks like I'm running from a Bond villain. We've checked it out. We have the rings inside that engine are just floating around like crazy. Unfortunately, they're just, that engine's pretty rough, guys. And it's really has a lot of good bark to it, but in order for this thing to compete with this, we are going to be putting a 440 in it because it's just not, I want to have a great pair of current cars to work with, and that would be a really quick project as well. Already brainstorming what we need to do to get that 440 in there, and then most of the parts I have a good chunk of the parts that we need for it. Here's a couple things that really comes down to this guy. I had a lot of parts on hand for this. I've been planning this swap for the better part of 5 years, and I got things on the cheap. Perfect example is the donor vehicle, the SC400, which I highly recommend you get an SC400 for it because it comes with a lot of the parts you're going to need, whether it's the coolant lines, the heater core lines, a lot of the parts, the accelerator cable. You're going to need to either get custom parts made or you can pull them right out of the SC400. You're going to have to get a bunch of things, and actually let's go inside because it's a bit windy and we can go over some of the parts. Now that we're inside the car, too windy out there. Now that we're inside the car, we can kind of go over a couple things. Now, we do still have things we need to take care of, whether it's like, I want to remake the wiring harness so it fits more OEM into this. You can get away with the wiring harness that it comes with if you install it the same way it came out of the SC400. I don't really like that. I like the way that it came inside this car. There's a couple things though, just to let you know. Expect to have a wonderful time trying to put stuff inside your center console and be able to put a beverage in here, coffee or what have you. That's probably my biggest pet peeve of this car is just, it's terrible. And the Thames. Get rid of the Thames. It's garbage. But a lot of people, a couple channels I know I really like to follow and watch their projects, they're saying how the R154 is just a non-responsive truck transmission. And I was watching him go like, showing him shifting like that and making it really sluggish. And I've had a lot of experience with this transmission. I've driven many Supras with it, and I find that even with my, we'll go to my right hand here. So you just kind of go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that's very true to form while even driving. Now this transmission has been completely rebuilt though. They do wear out, and I'll kind of touch over that in just a moment when we kind of go over the cost of things. And when I sat down and was thinking about this, like the transmission that's in this, I pulled out of an 88 Toyota Supra that I parted out years ago. It was a turbo, and that's the only way you're going to get an R154. Do not run this engine on a W58. I don't think that it would hold up very well, but that's my opinion. They shift really well, but they're not nearly as strong as the R154. But yeah, so how much can you expect to do this swap? That's something that I really didn't think about as far as if someone was doing it themselves. And I followed a content creator a couple of years ago as he was doing a really awesome low budget 4-door drag car. And he was selling it as a budget car, and I was running the numbers in my head how much the car would cost to build, and it was a lot. Like you're talking, and experiencing myself building the 318 out there, and yeah, it was a lot. And even though it was a budget to him because he had stuff in inventory, just like this car is a budget to me, I probably spent $3,000 doing the swap. I made parts. I was able to figure things out on my own, and with a lot of help from people like Lonnie over at superstore.com, or you have, if you want a great channel, you can go visit Cartoon New Zealand. So it's Cartoon, as in like you're tuning a car, TUNE, New Zealand, for electrical stuff for the 1UZ to get it to work. And then there was, of course, stuff you needed to figure out on your own, trying to get the wiring harness to integrate into the body harness on this car. But I sat down today and I wasn't really thinking about it, and I figured I needed to do a video on it. One of the big things, like I said, you're going to want to get an SC400 to be able to do the donor. Now, I bought the SC400 really cheap, $1,500. Original price that we agreed on was $2,000, but when I went to go pick it up and pay, he had put it in a place where ice fell and shattered the rear glass, which of course I used that to drop $500 off. Not that I needed the rear glass, but we have to be shrewd negotiators when we're doing builds. I am on a shoestring budget on most of the projects I put together, and this is of course something I've wanted to do for the better part of 5 years. Now, I got it, like I said, for $1,500, but you can easily expect, and it took me 6 months to find one at that price, and there was a lot of parts in that car that, quite honestly, just blew that thing out of the water for value. Most of those cars go for around $7,000. Now, I did find out afterwards, it's, I got a clean title and everything for it. I found out why it was for sale for that much, and it wasn't anything mechanically wrong with it. But that's a story for another day. So the donor car expected to be no less than $3,000, but quite honestly, they're getting to the point where a clean version of that's probably going to cost you at least $7,000, at least in the Northeast. I don't know what they go for in the Southwest and stuff like that. So you're about $3,000 for that. The transmission for the R154, they used to be really cheap, like dirt cheap. Couple $100, $1,000. Now they're going for around $2,400. You're going to want to get the transmission rebuilt. And the transmission shop that I used a long time ago, and this transmission, they did a superb job on this. I put it aside so I could pull it back up, but my phone is not cooperating. The shop that I had do the R154 rebuild, and again, it is superb. I'll cut this out while I'm looking for this. Oh, there we go. It was Capital District Transmission. They are located down on 11's Mohawk Street in Google. You have like the worst way of looking things up. Green Island. Okay, yeah, so 11 Mohawk Street, Green Island, New York, 12183. If you're in the area and you're looking, they don't even know that. Oh, I did call them and ask them what the current cost of the rebuild of the transmission would be. Mind you, 12 years ago, it was around $750 to rebuild this transmission. It is a very complex transmission. It makes the A833 in the satellite look like, I don't know. I can mess with that one. I can't. It's a very strong transmission. There are plenty of things you can do to it. You can put all billet internals. You can get dog box gear set up for it. But just a straight rebuild, he said, probably would be, it could be $1,200. It could be double. It depends on, the current cost of stuff, how things are going up really rapidly right now. But I did the, kind of calculation inside my head with inflation from 2009 to now. And it's roughly, like you said, around $1,200 with taxes and everything like that. So expect around $1,200 for the rebuild. Definitely recommend it. They can wear out, and unfortunately you don't get that nice smooth shifting like I was showing you. The synchros, if they aren't, like these were all replaced, they do wear out and they can be a little bit rough. That's why I'm suggesting, while you have it out, get it rebuilt. It will be a phenomenal transmission for you. Your transmission cross brace is going to be around $200. Your clutch pedal is going to be around $100. $50 for the master cylinder, and altogether you're looking at around $4,000 for the transmission swap. That's everything. That's fluids, taxes, everything. See, the adapter kit from superstore.com with the aluminum flywheel, the stage 2 clutch, and the adapter plate, slave cylinder cables, or the lines rather, the flex lines, and also very importantly, the bleeder is up and out of the transmission well, because you would never be able to get to it. So it's a phenomenal kit. Highly recommend it. Give Lonnie a call over at superstore.com. He's a great guy. He'll work with you. But you're probably going to pay around $1,700 for that setup, maybe a little bit more with shipping and taxing. I don't know where you're from. The drive shaft in this car is an all aluminum drive shaft from superstore.com. I bought that. I bought that in my. It came out of my blue Supra. So when I sold the blue Supra, I took some of the mods off and I put the original equipment back in. Oh no, that's not right. That's from when I did. I'm mistaken. That was when I did the R154 swap in this, because originally this was an automatic car. So I swapped this over to a manual, and that's when I bought it, because if I was going to buy a drive shaft, I might as well get a one-piecer. It doesn't cause nearly as much issue with it's got a carrier bearing. It saves you, actually I measured it out, saves you about 30 pounds overall, and you're going to be paying around $700 for that drive shaft shipped. The rear differential off the interweb on eBay, with shipping and taxes, you're looking at around $600 for that. Your engine mounts, I made them, so it cost me next to nothing. Actually, it cost me nothing because I had all the material on hand. You're looking at around $400 for that. That's shipped. That's to your house. The another expensive part is the exhaust system in this car. So the headers are going to have to be pretty narrow. You're not going to be able to use the OEM ones to fit it inside here. So I have a set of PPE ones. They happen to be on the SC400, and they're about one of the most narrow headers you're going to be able to get, and you still need to clearance them. So that's kind of, unless you're making your own headers, you're kind of stuck with those. And I hated the flange on it, so I cut that off. I used the same style flange that I put on the Satellite, which is OG style from back in the 70s. And they're $1,300, and you're still going to have to bang on them a little bit with a hammer for it to clear the steering column. And then the exhaust, for a good set of exhaust like what's on here, I have, fortunately, huge shout out to Rich, the guy. I couldn't have done this swap without him. I bounced tons of ideas off of him, and he was really freaking awesome. He's freaking awesome. So big shout out to Rich for being super dope. He hooked us up with a set, and he had it off of one of the cars. It was on the car when he bought it. I guess he wanted to go for a more stock look, so he went with the HKS, which is far more original looking than those. And I have a set of retro, like actual vintage, I guess there would be vintage exhaust for this car. That's freaking awesome. And but you're expecting probably around $1,000, $1,200 to do an overall swap, and that's terrifying. That's like this car. That's without finding one of these or a Mark IV. You could do this exact same swap in a Mark IV. Fortunately, you don't have to do nearly as much with headers and stuff because the Mark IV's frame rails are a bit wider. I didn't know that until I did this, because the SC400 and the SC300 and the Toyota Supra share the same chassis. But yeah, you could probably save yourself a couple $1,000s less putting in a Mark IV Supra, but you're going to spend tens of $1,000s more for a Mark IV Supra. Now, I like this car. To me, I like the Mark III a lot better. It's a little bit more narrow. It's a wider, it's got a nice wide stance to it. It's got pop up and down headlights. Anyone that says that's not cool, they're lying to you. But if you need to buy one of these cars, just kind of keep in mind that, trust me when I say, the reason why I didn't let go of this car, I'm the second owner of this car. I bought it with very, very little rust on it, and there's very little rust on it now. Start off with a good platform of one of these, because they can rot out just as bad as a Mopar. The unibody, both in the Mopar and this, are very similar in the way that they handle northeastern weather. If you can get one of these from out south or down south, out west, southwest, midwest, out of the rust bucket, out of the rust belt, you're going to be a lot better off, and you're going to be probably around $10,000 for one of these cars. Now, if you're going to do this on a mint condition car, expect it to cost you around $50,000. These cars have gone crazy in price. I bought this car, like I said, 12 years ago, 11 or 12 years ago, whatever, for $1,800. As I said, the paint's wore on it because the sun being on it, but it's virtually rust free. There's components on this car that, brackets that just totally rot out on cars, and they still have the original paint on it. So all we need to do is put a coat of paint on this. And some interior stuff too. As you can see, the dash though is in phenomenal shape. This did have Thames. Get rid of that garbage, and so I have the original radio in it. I did for the longest time put a Kenwood in here. This actual dash cluster is out of my red Supra that I parted out because what was wrong with this one? Oh, this one. The interior in this car was completely destroyed. It was sun-baked like no one. This was all cracked and everything. So I have the original dash somewhere. But this car, when I bought it, this car probably only has around 50,000 miles on it. It's insane. Because before I bought it, it was off the road for 12 years. So this was basically, for a 30-year-old car, this was off the road for the better part of 24 years. It's insane to think that. But it's a good car. You can actually see the original interior of this car was that horrible color, nasty. But yeah, even a pretty rough one. Expect to spend $10,000. So without buying one of these cars, if you already own one, expect this swap to cost you $13,400. If you are patient and you get stuff here and there, you could be like me and you part out cars, sell off things like that, and you pretty much put this thing together for less than $5,000. But that's a tough order. You have to have a lot of patience. If you want to do it tomorrow, it's ground up, you don't have one of these cars, expect it to cost you $13,000 to $14,000 to do one of these swaps. I'm blown away by that number. Like I can't believe that. But it's 100% worth it. The car is freaking a monster. It is absolutely awesome. And I'm hoping to one day just have a huge garage full of monsters. The Satellite with the 440 in it is going to be completely insane. The Buick GS, when that's done with the 455 in it, it's going to be a complete freaking, that's going to be awesome. So yeah, if you're gonna get a car for $10,000 and do the swap, expect it to be around $25,000. I can't believe those words are that amount just came out of my mouth, but yeah, this is not the budget build that I was expecting, but it is 100% epic. Highly recommend it. These cars. Oh, and you have to think, right? We shaved several hundred pounds out of this car, and we're going to get it weighed. The base, because this is the target top with the turbo, the base model or the base weight of this car would have been around 3,500 pounds, and I'd be willing to bet we're probably at, with me in it, probably around 3,200 pounds. I'd be willing to admit or bet with me in it, that the first number was not with me in it. With me in it, we're at around 3,200. I'll be pleasantly surprised if we're closer to 3,000, which is possible. It is very possible. We'll get it weighed hopefully this week. But yeah, I'm kind of shell shocked by that number myself. And that's without taking account this quick disconnect steering wheel that we got out of the SC400. So these are not cheap either. So yeah, on that crazy insane bombshell, yeah, it's worth it though. This car is 100% a dream car. It's gonna be as exciting to drive the GS as it is to drive this thing, except for this thing will handle far better as far as around a track or even as a GT car going up through the Adirondacks. And that's what the plan for this car has always been, a great GT car for going up to Lake Placid or taking on an autocross course. Now, of course, it's not going to be stock in stock class, so probably won't be, we'll see how that works out. And we'll do it next year. We'll take this to autocross events and see how we place. and it's been about 10 years since I've been autocrossing, so it's going to be a lot of fun. So that's all I have for you today. I really wanted to do a quick breakdown and what to expect. I'll have some of the parts that I bought through the manufacturers, through, you know, I'll put the links. None of the parts I've said have been, other than my buddy Rich giving me the exhaust, nothing has been sponsored on this card. This has been years of labor and love going towards what I figured would be one of the most balanced and ridiculous cars that I could build without going to something smaller like a Miata. Which if you want to build something smaller for a track, you know, I don't know anything about the Miatas, but the Mini Coopers and Miatas would be great autocross cars as well. But I do want to do an Opel GT for a drag racer someday. Anyways, that's all I have for today. Remember, as always, keep your shiny side up, and God bless.